I wanted to do, I thought it'd be kind of funny if I did, or I'm compelled to anyways. I want to do, to begin, a corrections. We used to do corrections. You remember
Oh
that
yeah,
back in the
yeah.
day? So I got a couple corrections about ghosts.
Okay.
Not to do with ghosts themselves, but about how some of the bits of the conversation went down. You suggested a good reason for why a ghost smelling flowers would help it be weak in a fight.
Yes.
And I shot you down. But I listened to it, and you're totally right.
Well, thank you. I
It was a good
appreciate that.
idea. Yeah, it was a well thought out. I can almost, just go back and listen to it. I was committed to the bit, to being contrarian, but you had a good reason.
Well, I appreciate that. I also did not feel shot down. So
I know you don't feel
yeah.
shot down, but you're a very generous person, and but I want everyone else to know because I'm embarrassed about turning down a good idea. That's what that's about.
Well, thank you.
And then my second point is that I threw The Grudge under the bus a little. And I actually don't remember like anything about it enough to have done that. I just had like a feeling that it was like a derivative of The Ring, and I actually don't know if that's true. And my friend Patrick was like, "What's wrong with The Grudge?" And I was like, "You know what? Nothing." I don't know. I just threw it under the bus because sometimes when you're speaking for public consumption, you feel like you have to take a stand.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
something one way or another.
yeah. Also, while we're doing this, I know I said we didn't need to do this. I did make some mistakes about Eberron, but
Oh, that's right. No, don't worry about
yeah,
it. That's
yeah,
what Jeff's
yeah.
for.
It's
Don't
fine.
worry.
It's fine. It's fine. Eberron's really cool. You should all read Eberron stuff.
Yeah, exactly. If you want to know what was wrong about it, go on the Facebook group, Monster Manual Mash, and read Jeff's excellent, passionate corrections.
Yes, yes,
That's
yes.
why I don't mind the corrections, is that it's like, it's a fun thing with Jeff.
The one thing I do want to say though, is that Corvier is the whole continent. Karnarth, I think I'm saying that right, is the part I was talking about. That's
Right.
yes. That seems like an important one to mention.
Yeah. We have now apologized to all Eberonians. So what's Eberron then?
Eberron's Eberron is the whole planet basically, and it's also the
Okay.
name of the dragon, the like cosmic dragon whose body became the planet.
Yo.
Yeah. And then there's Kyber, who's the underworld, right? There's a whole. It's sweet. It's a whole world. It's a whole world that got built, and it's not like a railroady adventure in the world. It's just like here's the factions and here's the maps. It's good.
That is good. Okay, but today's show, boom, edit, nice.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Yeah. All that to say, that's the past. We don't need the past. We're living in the future. This is Monster Manual Mash. This is the podcast where two guys talk about every creature in the Dungeons and Dragons Monster Manual. We go entry by entry, monster by monster, and we pick apart what Wizards of the Coast is talking about, what all the writers are trying to pitch as a monster for your game. And we look at the hooks of the monster. Why would you want to run this particular thing? What they're trying to get at sometimes with the language and the narration, how to actually run it. We look at the stats. We look at how they look because we're judgy bitches. We look at myth and history, and we speculate. And the idea is to have a good time, learn something. You might feel better. You might get closer to those you love.
Yeah.
You're not going to
Yeah.
challenge me on that?
You might. No. You might. You might. You might. And with that guarantee, I am Wes.
Yeah, and I'm Chris. And what do we got today, Wes?
We got the Ghoul. We got the Ghoul.
You got the Ghouls. Perfect Halloween, man.
Yeah.
Because we start off pretty strong here in Halloween territory. The Ghoul roams the night in packs, driven by an insatiable hunger for humanoid flesh. Good, strong opening line.
Yeah, absolutely.
Next paragraph, devourers of flesh, in case that wasn't clear. Like maggots or carrion beetles, ghouls thrive in places rank with decay and death. They haunt places, They haunt places where it can gorge on dead flesh and organs. Don't forget those. When it can't feed on the dead, it pursues living creatures. So that's kind of interesting already. It's a monster that like would prefer not to attack you if it has a more better food.
Yeah. If it's already got corpses to eat, it'll go for those. But if it's got no corpses, it goes and makes more corpses.
Yeah, it's about the corpses. It's
Which,
not the people.
yeah, which I love that the line about like I don't know. There's something almost like kind of like they know what they're doing and they're like, oh yeah, and if it doesn't have corpses, it goes and makes more corpses. Like a fun euphemistic way to be spooky about them. But then I was thinking about it. That's basically true about anything that eats meat. Like most carnivorous animals and people that eat meat is like you
Hmm.
make it a corpse first and then you eat the corpse. That's not special to ghouls.
Makes you
But when you
think,
phrase it
huh?
the way that they phrase it, it's yeah. Who are the
Yeah,
real ghouls, huh?
exactly.
Um,
Well, this is kind of a theme that is carried out with the ghoul in its
yeah.
entirety. Is that it's like it's really just a person. It's the undead that's most like a person.
Yeah. Because I was gonna say up top is like ghouls are the original fast zombies, but they're more than that.
Yeah.
They're more than that. They're different than zombies.
Yeah, but they're related. There's definite relation, and I have a
Yeah.
whole. I think after we cover the book material, then like I think we can talk about how they're like and unlike all the other classics.
Yeah.
Uh, they derive no nourishment, but are driven by an unending hunger that compels them to consume. A ghoul's undead flesh never rots, and they can persist in a tomb or crypt for untold ages without feeding. So that makes them, it's like you're sure they're undead because they don't derive nourishment, and it kind of makes them more terrifying psychologically to think about.
Yeah.
Just like
It
unending hunger.
totally. Yeah. And just like unending like and like, centuries, millennia, just like in a sealed tomb, nothing to eat, but feeling nothing but hunger. That's
Hmm.
that's some dark shit.
That's dark shit. They have an abyssal origin. Ghouls trace their origins to the abyss. Dorsane was the first ghoul, an elfin worshipper of Orcus. He feasted on humanoid flesh to honor the demon prince of undeath. And that's who Orcus is. You gotta know who Orcus is to understand
Yeah.
some of this. That's kind of all I know about Orcus, but I think that's enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's a demon, but he's also he's all about the undead. There you go.
Yeah.
In return, Orcus turned him into the first ghoul, and he lived in the abyss and spent his days turning other demonic worshippers into ghouls. Until one day, this perfect, idealistic domestic life was interrupted by Yinagu. Have you ever pronounced that name before? Yinagu?
I always said Yinogu, but I
Yinogu.
don't know.
That's pretty. I
Yinogu.
like that. Yin. So the important part is that everyone pronounces the first four letters as yin because it's a hyena,
Yin.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Demonic Knoll Lord, and Knolls are the hyena people. Yinagu invaded the abyss and knocked Dorsane from his seat of power. Orcus gave him the cold shoulder and did not intervene, so Dorsane instead begged for help from the elf gods, and they took pity and they extracted him to safety in the material plane. And that is why elves have ever since been immune to the ghoul's paralytic touch. This is not in the stat block.
Yeah. I went back to it. It's like, oh, I missed that. Okay.
Yeah, so that's a weird. So far we haven't encountered anything like this where there's like
Yeah.
an extremely particular rule that affects a major, like the iconic power. If anyone has if you've never really played a bunch of D&D, you might not know it, but like the whole reason that ghouls exist kind of tactically in a game is that they have paralyzing, scratching abilities.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like the reason you'd be afraid to fight a ghoul versus a zombie is that a ghoul can paralyze you. And in the stat block, it doesn't say anything about this. So if you just use the stat block, if you're just like opening it up to crack out a monster, and you're not so interested in the provided material, then you're never going to see that. And even if you are, like there's no, because the book has no like game acknowledging material, there's like nothing to tell you that it's okay to use it or not use it, which is fine for people like us who are like used to kind of doing whatever you want with D&D, but it seems just like a bad form to like include something and then also not include it at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like the exact type of contradiction that like will make certain people's heads explode in frustration,
Yeah, I mean, it's like a piece of world building. Like, there's actually not a ton of world building built into the monsters, like stat block. But this
Yeah.
was like, if you put that in the stat block, there'd have to be a reason, and then it would reinforce the whole. Like, I'm very much in favor of that. I think that's very cool. But I think they're trying to have their cake and eat it too, where it's like it can be as bland as you want or as generic, and you can insert it anywhere. But you can also, if you read this, then now you're kind of makes you have to decide if you're going to like involve the recommended lore of the game.
Yeah.
Which is more than I want to think.
Just tell me what to roll. Tell me what the good number is.
Exactly. Next section, ghasts. Orcus sometimes infuses a ghoul with a stronger dose of abyssal energy, making a ghast. Where ghouls are little more than savage beasts, ghasts are cunning and they can inspire a pack of ghouls to follow its commands. So there's 2 stat blocks here, and they're basically the same, except ghasts have a stench.
Yeah,
that can
stinky boys.
They're stinky boys. And what does it do? It can make you poisoned, which gives you disadvantage, which is bad. And they also have a turning defense, which makes them particularly dangerous. So they have advantage on being turned, which extends to other ghouls within 30 feet of it. So what I am picturing here is like a fast zombie scenario. Maybe not like the creature itself, but like a rush of scary, ravenous, unreasonable monsters.
Yeah.
In a pack.
Just scrambling at you.
Yeah. But there's like the difference between maybe like a pack of animals or something is that there's like I'm trying to figure out what the vibrational difference is between like a pack of wild animals and a pack of ghouls led by a ghast. There's like a human or they have a intelligence of 11, I think. So they have like an average human intelligence, the ghast does. So I don't know. I think it's kind of creepy to see a human act so demented.
Yeah.
And debased. They're not
especially when like they have the human form there, and like sometimes like it's easy to imagine like the scrambling ghouls like kind of going on like a half quadrupedal, half bipedal gait, like they're sort of going back and forth, like they're moving a little bit weirder than they should.
Yeah.
And
maybe it's that they look like you. Like you are, like you're different from a wolf. I mean the royal you.
Yeah.
They don't look like Wes necessarily.
I look a lot like a wolf.
That is true.
Yeah.
That part is true, but not like a ghoul.
No.
But the royal you, I'm talking to the human beings in the crowd right now. The ghoul is humanoid, and it's like a human being. It's almost like the terror of like cannibals or something.
Yeah. And maybe there's something there of like I don't know, like I'm thinking about humans being particularly evolved towards being persistence hunters, right? Like to a lot of other animals. To them, like we're like the predators that would hunt them alongside like lions and whatever else. And like we don't often think about it because like we're the humans in the situation, but like what would it be like to be hunted by humans, you know? Like I guess there's humans that hunt each other in certain ways, but there's something there. There's some like you know, you put your empathy in the wrong place, and it's spooky because it's like, oh right, regular ass humans are scary, you know.
Who are the humans that are hunting each other? Do you know something? Like, what are you talking about?
Oh, I'm thinking about people fighting each other, like war. I don't know.
Oh, okay, yeah. But this is but war is different, you know.
War
like,
is different.
This is a hunger thing. This is like a base need impulse.
Yeah. So there's maybe another aspect of like you know, there's like the classic like, oh, we're different than other animals, right? But it's like, oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
Are we?
Yeah, just like actually that relates to what you said at the beginning, where you're like, if it can't find something dead to eat, it'll hunt a live thing and make it dead. And it's like that's where have I heard this before? Where have I seen this before? It seems familiar.
Yeah, totally. But then you have the sort of when you bring ghasts in there too, because you've got like these like animalistic but humanoid, like ravenous, can't be reasoned with sort of like things there. And maybe you got your adventuring parties is like, it's okay, I can turn undead, I can do this, but it doesn't work. And one of them kind of stands up a little bit tall. I'm like, oh, they are actually still a little bit more like us, because look, they have a hierarchy, and they have motivations, and they can be persuaded. That's a good spooky moment.
And characterization too. Like I think it's worth it narratively to like have a standout villain.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of fun.
Yeah. kind of like a ghoul version of like who is it in Fellowship of the Ring? Mostly the film. I think almost only the film. Lurtz, the leader of the Uruk-hai.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
there's like, oh well, that one's like a guy though. You know, like
Yeah. Yeah, you have one. You got him. What was he? Is that the albino one?
he's the one
There's a
that
couple of
there
orc
were more.
leaders.
Yeah, that was the one with the very prominent white hand of
Oh, the
Saruman
Saruman
on
one.
his
Yeah, okay.
face.
Yeah.
And there were like I'm thinking about the one in the end of Fellowship that shows up, and then you see his particular birthing scene when they take him out of the sack in the ground.
Yeah.
And he was the orc that there were the most action figures of because he got a lot of screen time
Yeah.
because he was the leader kind of.
And he was kind of, he was kind of hot.
Oh, he's absolutely a type, like for sure.
I'm just comparing him
Yeah.
to like the orc leader I think of the most. I know the one you're talking about for sure, but the orc leader I think of, and I wish I remembered his name, but it's the one from Return of the King, the one that leads the siege against. I guess it's not a siege, it's a battle, but it's like
Yeah.
the attack
Form
on
ranks, you fools. Form ranks. That guy.
Yeah, I like him because
Yeah, with
he's misshapen and albino. He's got tons of damage has been done to him. He seems I don't know. He seems like he's got a philosophy behind his life. Like when he barely sidesteps the catapult boulder.
Yeah, yeah.
When he like
No, that's a good moment. It
only
kind of reminds me of
begrudgingly.
totally. Like it reminds me of the whole thing how like and up until World War One, British and maybe even two British officers were instructed never to duck because it would
Right.
if you show any sign of nervousness, that's bad for morale. And I even think like watching Return of the King, I'm like, if I was an orc, yeah, I'd want that guy leading me into battle. Like, look,
Absolutely.
he's seen some fights.
You know what? I bet you that Peter Jackson, because Peter Jackson came out with a World War I documentary called, and it's worth looking up. I haven't seen it. I'd like to.
It's the one where he colorized all the footage, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I've heard of it. Yeah.
It is going to be revealed at the end of this sentence. They shall not grow old.
Yes.
So it's, I guess I would say, probable that he has an interest in World War I, and Tolkien, famous World War I man.
Yeah, yeah.
And I bet you he used, that's probably like the dark side of valor in war, is the commitment to the bit of bravery. The extreme of bravery leads you to those kinds of horrific moments.
Yeah, yeah.
Used for evil creates a very powerful and noteworthy character.
Yeah. And I honestly think in certain genres, I suppose this is more common, but I think the sort of like very in the way this particularly to the military, but like a charismatic, gruff, like competent general as like a villain is very good because it's like, yeah, no, he's a threat because like of course his soldiers follow him, right?
Yeah.
He's like Orc Patton.
Yeah. Yeah. Competence has a certain attraction or appeal, or that crosses, like, doesn't matter the morality. Sometimes you are forced to admire an enemy you'd otherwise hate.
Yeah.
So I guess that's a good way.
Give that to a ghoul.
Exactly. Yeah. Give that to a ghoul and make them even more human and relatable, and it'll twist the whole thing that much more. I think for maximum creepability, you'd want to like highlight how the ghouls are like just like people except wrong.
Yeah.
Depraved.
Given fully into, like the id, right?
Yeah, basically. That's a good call. And the maybe we could talk about how they are different from certain monsters now. Like that's a good thing. They have an id, like, so they have a psychology. They're the most human undead. So they're different from
they
zombies.
Want something, right?
Yeah,
like there's a thing that they want.
But zombies they often are eating people as well.
Yeah.
And so there's definitely some crossover, but with, I think, zombies, the scariness of it is the mindlessness of it.
It's the difference to me is between like zombies have like instincts, but like ghouls and ghasts have like a will to do the thing that they're doing. It's not like pure instinct. It's like it's like there's instinct there, but like the instinct is driving like a desire that they're making a choice to.
Yeah. The desire is something like they have the same kind of hunger you do, whereas a zombie is like a machine almost.
Yeah.
Ghouls have some mind.
Yeah.
And like you can make often, a goofy or whimsical necromancer will have like zombies doing their laundry and flying skull butlers and stuff. But you wouldn't
Yeah.
make a ghoul work for you necessarily. It'd be too
Yeah.
much. They can't do it.
Yeah. Like maybe if you're like a powerful vampire, you might make sure that there's some ghouls roaming around the outside, the outskirts of your castle, just as a deterrent. But like,
Yeah, but you
I don't
wouldn't give
know.
them $20 to go get you like some Coke Zeros from the Max Milk, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, they're not coming back.
Yeah, they're spending it all on pepperoni sticks. And that's another one, vampires. So like vampires also consume people.
Yeah.
But there's a huge difference because vampires have like lusts. There's like a lustiness to their feeding.
Yeah.
But they're suave. They're usually sophisticated. There's all kinds of variations of vampires, but like the classic Dracula style vampire is like an aristocrat,
Yeah. Yeah.
which suggests like a place in society and a reputation and maybe certain adherences to like particular customs and rituals of their time and place.
Yeah.
And they have to fold in their like supernatural hunger into that. And there's like a tension between the ways that they are bound and the ways that they want to indulge themselves.
Yeah. And they have like an awareness of eternity, I think, that like
Yeah.
a ghoul doesn't have. And so I think I don't know how explicit this is in a lot of like vampire fiction, but it's like, okay, well, I know I'm immortal. Eventually, like I love drinking blood, but like it feels the best, but like eventually just that gets boring. I kind of want to make a game of it, and see if I can blend in and kind of try to find enjoyment in the hunt of it, because they're like on like the sliding scale of like the peopliness of it. They're very hard to the it's a person side, and then on the other extreme is like a zombie, and then somewhere in the middle there is ghouls.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good way to put it on the undead spectrum. It is funny. There's like I think it was even a much bigger thing in 3.5 of like having to categorize the undead. There's like corporeal, incorporeal,
Yeah.
social, non-social. But ghouls are bottomless pits.
Yeah.
Kind of more to what you're saying. There's no finesse to it. Just they don't get satisfaction. Even when they eat, they don't get satisfaction. There's no nourishment. And I think that's also, let's put werewolves on the board.
Yeah.
So werewolves, they have hunger, but I've always interpreted werewolves as like being overwhelmed with also a bestial passion, but it's like a different thing. It's like maybe invigorating.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is maybe the feeling. Whereas ghouls are just like, there's no invigoration, there's no satisfaction, nothing good comes out of it. It's not a warm thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think there's a tendency, I think this is important, especially for like film, if you're gonna like the ghouls, I don't think a ghoul should like roar like a predator. There's a tendency in a lot of film to make like anything that like eats people or like is bestial, it should like roar, and then they'll act like the same kind of just like lion monster. Do you know what I mean? Or am I just
Yeah, I know. No, I know what you mean. I feel like there's like there's no sort of like, because I imagine, I don't know, there could be lots of different reasons, but like the roar is more like a hey, I'm establishing dominance before I eat you. Like this is the situation. Like there's sort of like a declaration that happens there.
Yeah.
And it's sort of just like what you expect from like a scary monster. It's gonna make a scary sound.
Right, because it's something that happens in like the animal kingdom.
Yeah.
So it's
totally.
the easiest to comprehend. It's the roaring T-Rex from Jurassic Park.
Yeah. But it's not the tiger that roars that gets you, right? It's the one that's been following you silently for who knows how long, right? Like, so there's like it's if something's just coming at you, like that's almost more like, oh, I'm gonna get eaten by a thing. The thing that actually wants to eat you, unless like a bear, you cross a bear's path and the bear's gonna eat whatever it can. It's like, hey, I smelled you from a long ways away. Get out of here. Depending on the kind of bear, it's gonna like just like sort of face that head on. But like, if it was just like a really hungry like cougar, right? Like it's not gonna bother with a display. It's not gonna be worried so much about its territory as getting a successful hunt because it's hungry, right? And that's its focus. And so like a ghoul, they're not territorial, right? Like they might they might like this is I get a lot of corpses here, so I don't want anything else taking these corpses. They might have that sort of thing going on, but most of their motivation is going to be that raw hunger. So like a ghoul is just gonna go for you. It's just gonna come straight at you. You turn a
Yeah.
corner and it's sprinting at you. That's almost more that is maybe more terrifying than turning a corner and there's like a pale guy. It's like bleh, and then it comes at you. But if there's
Exactly.
a pale guy just sprinting at you, like
Like
that's
already sprinting at you
yeah.
from like
Yeah.
across, you could see across a field and there's just like a gang of pale, creepy pervs just
Yeah.
sprinting. And they're not interested in roaring. They're not getting joy out of this. They're just like, they're doing whatever they can to appease this unending hunger. And if they get what they want,
Yeah.
it probably just makes them even hungrier.
Yeah.
So they're desperate. I think that's a thing.
Yeah. It's like it's almost less that they want flesh and it's and more that they hate wanting flesh.
Yes. Yes. That's good, Wes.
Thank you.
They hate that they want it so much. It drives them crazy. That's it, man. Case closed.
It's almost like, and I don't know, I'm just having fun connecting dots here. But it's like, what if you took the lessons from like Buddhist thought and just reversed them entirely?
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's like, and just like, or just like embodying the like complete reversal of that.
They're just suffering.
Yeah, they're
Like, what do
just
you mean? Like,
suffering.
is that what you mean?
Well, it's more like it's like they're fully, all they are is like, I mean, I guess not quite, because it's like all they are is like the want, and all they are is like wanting a thing that they don't have. But there's no acceptance of like, I'm always gonna want and I can't get it. It's like no, I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna keep trying and I'm gonna keep trying to get it, and they can't die. They're eternal. There's no like they're like the idea of like being like eternal and deathless and existing forever and always wanting forever, but like it's almost like the existence of being a ghoul is almost exactly what the practice of Buddhism is getting you out of. But ghouls, they're essentially that, so they can't they can never escape the wheel and achieve nirvana. They're just permanent and corporeal.
Yeah, they're
And
locked in.
always wanting. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a really interesting connection you could build something out of. Like, I imagine a monastery where they keep a bunch of ghouls in like a pit and like contemplate them.
Oh yeah. Whoa.
There's something I think we're revealing something that I thought already but hadn't really expressed in words. It's like there's something actually really psychological about ghouls that is not really explored too much. Although there is a book I will talk about later on that I've read that is very pertinent to this. And that's, I think, the only example I can think of where someone else has tapped into that idea.
All right.
But let's get into that. Let's get to let's talk a little bit first about the expressions of the ghoul in various D&D precursors to 5th edition.
All right.
And let's talk about AD&D. Oh, first, before that, we're getting ahead of myself. I want to talk about the paralyzation quickly.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, in D&D terms, ghouls, like the whole reason to have ghouls is because they're different from zombies, different from other undead, because they have a paralyzing claw attack.
Yeah.
So the use, I think, the scene is a mob of these are sprinting at you. It's panic. It's the sudden shock of the attack. It is the shock of seeing like humanoid bodies just trying to slavering, teeth gnashing, trying to eat you, and a PC is paralyzed and is maybe being dragged away mid-fight.
Yeah. It's great because it's like a built-in, oh, now we have to really think about whether we're just going to run away from this or not. Because like we'd be leaving, that guy behind, and like he's not even dead yet. Like he's just paralyzed.
Yeah, it makes
maybe we have to stay and fight.
Yeah, it makes an interesting tactical decision, which really highlights, especially like at low level, the action of the game is like This is a very dramatic scene in terms of
Yeah.
the action that you get out of a game. There's lots, there's like whatever story is going on, like this is the action movie part, and a lot
Yeah.
can be revealed in a scene like this. So I think it's cool. But the downside is, I think, paralyzation itself as a concept in the game.
Yeah.
It's the same with like being stunned. It's like the effect is you just lose turns.
Yeah. Yeah,
know?
it's always kind of a bummer when like one of the mechanics in the game is that for a little bit you don't get to play the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, well said. And it's tough because I love the scariness of paralyzation for your character, but it's also just a bummer to have happen actually.
Yeah.
It helps to be like a willing participant in the danger. Like some people get very
Yeah.
like tight about bad things happening to their character.
Yeah.
But if you're just
I
like,
kind of love it when terrible things happen to my
yeah, I know.
characters.
I know. That's why we get along in games very well.
Yeah, yeah. I've said it before. I play my characters like I'm driving a stolen car.
Exactly. So, yeah, it's about buying into the fiction of the game. It's about yes-anding even when bad things are happening to you.
Yeah.
And kind of reveling in the scene. Like, make the scene. If you get paralyzed, like, I don't know, play into it. Think of how like interesting the scene would be to like read or look at.
Yeah, yeah.
It's hard to do that though. That's a whole other discussion for some people. They look at it like more of a game where they have like a real clear picture of how their character would be. And if you play with it too much, they get bummed out. AD&D, it's very similar, except that it adds that anyone slain by a ghoul will become one, unless their body is blessed, which is a spell, or blessed and resurrected, or something like that. Ghouls can't be affected by the sleep spell, and I think a couple other spells in particular. It explicitly says that magic circle of protection against evil 100% works. They don't have to there's no check they can make.
Great.
And it says that elves are explicitly immune to paralyzation, but it's not explained how or why.
All right, between the two editions, we have two coherent things.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So there's a lovely example of like a previous iteration bubbling up into the now, but still not like fully explained and not integrated. I mean, it's integrated but not explained. And there's one line about how, and by the way, there's a water ghoul, which I forgot to write the name down, but it's some made up name. There's just a ghoul that swims well, and I guess that's important. Just like there's like a water gargoyle.
Yeah.
Were there a lot of adventures back in the day that took place like underwater?
I think there was one kind of famous one. Oh, I don't know. I just remember the one game that one of the only games, actually, there's been a couple, but one of the only games I ever played of AD&D. This is one run by James Kerr that was actually broadcast live on Trent Radio, and it was like about the Drowning Temple, which I think might be an actual module. I
sounds
have
familiar.
to look it up, but basically there was a temple dedicated to the god of death by drowning.
Yes.
And that we had an adventure in, and so I've like a large chunk of my AD&D experiences are a water dungeon.
Okay.
Well,
then this all makes sense.
That tracks. Yeah. If they're being water ghouls, that makes sense. Of course there's water ghouls. There's a whole god of death by drowning.
Who's going to do the drowning, if not the ghouls?
Yeah.
So then we get to second edition, and we have minor revisions that kind of make it closer to fifth. But it does mention that they hang out around graveyards in particular. And this is where they get to the idea that they don't always hunt. They hang out around places where bodies are already abundant. So like battlefields and graveyards.
Yeah.
And they transmit ghoul fever, and that's how people get turned into ghouls, by being slain.
Oh, I might have had that last week.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ghoul fever. Is that what it's called?
Ghoul fever. Yeah.
I love that that's what it's called. That's great.
Yeah. Ghoulvid-19. I like the idea of them hanging around graveyards and battlefields. It's very mythic of to have like a place where maybe not graveyards because maybe like not a sanctified graveyard, but like an abandoned graveyard or like a
Yeah.
graveyard where something bad happened. A battlefield, these places where like bad things happened
Yeah.
now attracts these like the reverberations of these evil events persist.
Just like bad enough vibes that make a
Yeah.
lot of corpses, and you get the combination of the vibes and the dead bodies, and you get ghouls.
That's how you get ghouls.
Verdun was for sure full of ghouls.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Europe is lousy with ghouls.
Everywhere. Nothing but ghouls.
Pretty much ghouls all over the world, if we're going to be honest.
Yeah, that's true.
In third edition, it's much the same, but it suggested that ghouls were once people who indulged in cannibalism, but it ultimately leaves that to the reader to decide, which is interesting because then it's kind of like a choice.
Yeah.
Cannibalism, this is one of those things, it's like, as far as I understand it, it was like the first time cannibalism kind of captured people's imaginations. It was from like racist adventure stories.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Europeans entirely misinterpreting funerary rituals and things like that.
Yeah. So, but it's still kind of held up as like, oh, this is a big taboo.
Yeah.
So we're still kind of hung up on it. And there are a few cases. There's like, some weird famous cases I'm sure you could easily look up of like people arranging cannibalism in real life.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. You hear about
Yeah,
these
I've heard
kinds of
about
things
that.
once in a while.
Yeah.
On Vice.
Consenting to it
Whatever.
ahead of time.
Yeah.
And there's like, there's plenty of fiction involving cannibalism, but I think like, what immediately comes to my mind is The Road, when they notice the tremors because of the prion disease you get from eating human brains. It gives you the tremors. And so that's all over like post-apocalyptic fiction. The Road is the best example, but that being the indicator of like, oh no, you stay away from people who are really friendly and have like trembling hands in a post-apocalyptic scenario. I forget exactly what that's called. It's got a name, and in cultures that have some ritual practices around cannibalism, there are certain parts of the body that you don't eat because
Kuru.
Yes, that's it. Because this is known. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's like a physical manifestation of a transgression, of like a major transgression. And I hadn't thought about that, about The Road and a lot of post-apocalyptic fiction. It's like, they're not ghouls as they are presented in this game, but they are like, they have kind of given up some of their human status. Like they've become some sort of monstrous other by taking that step.
Yeah, like I think there's in every Fallout game that I can remember, there's a side quest that involves you find some cannibals, and it's interesting that there are also like things called ghouls in the Fallout world, right? Which are like irradiated people, and some of them have gone feral, and they really just look like fantasy ghouls in a lot of ways. But there's like the non-feral ghouls who are just like regular people that have just been irradiated. But like, it's always like when you find the regular people who are post-apocalyptic secret cannibals with a spooky town where they're too nice to you, it's always spookier than the straight up monsters you're fighting all the time.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's, again, I think it relates to the like, this could be you if not but the grace of God. There but for the grace of God go I.
Yeah. You could also usually be a cannibal in Fallout games.
Yeah. Well, because it plays that game plays everything tongue in cheek.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like horrific but also funny. Like it's a ghoul who eats people, but they're wearing a fedora or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. But that is they're playing with that idea, which is very related to what we're talking about here.
But if like, this is in third edition, right, where it's hinted at where that might be the origin, then my first thought is like, okay, well then baked into like the metaphysical reality of this world is that taboo. If that just like, well, if you ate people and then you died, that's your ghost is never gonna go up into the sky. You're gonna be flesh who eats flesh forever.
Yeah. Wes, are you suggesting that there's a bias towards like colonial morality in Dungeons and Dragons? I'm not sure we're allowed to say that. Yeah, I don't know.
In the game about being a European style adventurer and going places and killing things and taking stuff?
Being ungoverned tomb robbers. I don't know.
Can't be.
We love you, D&D, obviously.
We do, yeah.
Anyways, going into 4th edition, more of the same, except now I looked them up. It does the same thing, where it's like grave-minded ghoul flinger, whatever, right? Like to just have a bunch of different kinds of ghouls that do different things.
Yeah.
Tomb-touched, squiggy ghoul, tomb shooter, cemetery Sam, ghoulmanoid. But in terms of what the story behind ghouls is, it's when a cannibal dies now, they don't just like get turned into a ghoul through cannibalism. They then they commit sufficient cannibalry and then to be like cursed to come back as a ghoul after they die.
Yeah.
Which I don't like as much. I like a living being like twisted into becoming a ghoul, personally.
Yeah. I like you have the aspect where they don't get nourishment, right? Like maybe they get really ghoulish, but they're still alive. But it's the fact that they don't get nourishment that actually kills them, but they keep going. And
it's hard to find where the threshold was. It's like a long transformation.
Crossfade into undeath, you know?
Yes. Exactly. And then 5th edition, that's where we add the abyssal angle to try to tie it all into the cosmology of the game, which I don't know. I think we've talked about it a bunch. I like when they just kind of stand on their own. They're more psychological, more singular.
Yeah. You don't always have to have the devil that did it, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Like the biggest, it's the Orcus again.
Yeah. Like
boring.
I don't know.
I
there's stuff I like about it, but like I do like things better. Was like, no, there's not always like a thing behind it. There's not always like a reason for the bad thing. Sometimes parts of the universe are just bad. This universe has ghouls in it. That's just a fact, you know?
It's just a uniquely bad thing that is independent of all these other bad things.
Yeah.
You know? But I mean, there, like you said, there are some parts of it I like. I like Dorasane as I like him begging for help from elves.
Yeah.
And that'd be an interesting character to meet.
And I like Yinogu being involved with this because gnolls are also very hunger driven.
Yeah, exactly.
Too. And so like them being mixed up in all of this kind of like fits.
Yeah. I look forward to getting to gnolls.
Yeah.
I look forward to getting to know you. I'm so sorry.
It had to be done.
I did it. Okay, so let's talk about the little bit of etymology, a little bit of history. First, we'll deal with Ghast because most of this has to do with Ghoul, and Ghast is actually not so connected. But Ghast is a late Middle English word, as we can probably guess. It is the past participle of the obsolete verb aghast, which I would argue is not obsolete. Aghast is good.
Yeah.
Geist, which means frightened from Old English. Gasten, I think, or Gaston. So that's where we get like Geist, also poltergeist, ghost, that kind of thing. But Ghoul is a totally different origin. A ghoul is from Arabic. It is a demon-like being or a monstrous humanoid. It's the concept itself is from pre-Islamic Arabian religions associated with graveyards and the consumption of human flesh and grave robbing. It's also used in a derogatory sense to refer to a person who delights in the macabre or whose occupation directly involves death, like a gravedigger or grave robber, and is kind of like if someone is accused of liking death too much or like liking these kinds of like things you're supposed to be repelled by. It's how like, people would call if someone is like too wanton for violence, you call them a ghoul. That's like a common thing to call like political leaders who are like warmongering or delight in like the suffering of others. Ghoulishness. It's also related to a word in Arabic to seize. So it's also there's something of greed and gluttony to the word originally.
Yeah.
And it was first used in English literature in 1786 in William Beckford's Orientalist novel Vathek, which describes the ghoul of Arabic folklore, which I haven't dug into, but I'm sure we can all imagine how sensitive it is. And then I think ghouls came up actually in the same, in 1001 Nights.
Wow.
They come up in there a bunch of times as that's the primary source of most ghoul tales, and in that they are depicted as monstrous creatures that dwell in cemeteries. There was also a distinction between male and female ghouls, and they had different names. There was a character called the mother ghoul, or relational terms such as aunt ghoul. Aunt ghoul or mama ghoul is sometimes portrayed in tales luring hapless characters, usually men, into their homes so she can eat them. And in other stories, ghouls are open desert dwelling, shape-shifting demons that can assume the shape of animals, especially hyena, null connection.
Yeah.
It lures unwary people into the desert wastes or abandoned places to slay and devour them. Preys on young children, it drinks blood, it steals coins, and eats the dead. And they can take the form of the person most recently eaten. That's an interesting variation.
Yeah.
Then that affords you some intrigue, and also some Terminator situations where someone who looks like you walks into a vulnerable place and then starts throwing down.
Yeah.
Reveals themselves as a ghoul in their midst. And which I think is cool, because that's more in the line of this is a thinking creature this is a thinking creature who thinks like you, but has a supernatural, unthinkable hunger. It's just some beyond your comprehension, really, and that's scary.
And that one, that really it moves some sliders more towards the vampire side of it too, right? It's
Deception and trickery, and
yeah.
But this is all towards. I feel like vampires have something to prove in the process.
Yeah.
But a ghoul is just this is just the easiest way to infiltrate the hen house.
Yeah, totally.
There are some ghouls another story is they're cave dwelling animals who only leave at night and they avoid the sun. And they are genies. They are not mentioned in the Quran, but in Hadith, which is, I think, a collection of external writings, not official Quran, but more, we might compare them to parables or something.
Yeah.
There might be considered what it means for the cosmology is that they're real, just like genie are, but they're a separate thing. There's angels and demons and humans, but also genies, and now also ghouls. But it depends. Yeah. Sometimes they are just a type of genie. There are some pieces of writing in Islam that liken the ghouls to burned devils. So the story behind that is apparently these devils once had access to the heavens, where they eavesdropped and returned to earth to pass the hidden knowledge to soothsayers. When Jesus was born, 3 heavenly spheres were forbidden to them. With the arrival of Muhammad, the other 4 were forbidden. The merid among the devils continued to rise to the heavens, so that's one of the types of genies, but were burned by comets. If these comets didn't burn them to death, they were deformed and driven to insanity, and they fell to the deserts and were doomed to roam the earth as ghouls. That is a complicated story with probably some bits I don't fully understand.
Yeah.
But ghouls are demons who were denied heavenly spheres.
Yeah. And you know what the next best thing to a heavenly sphere is dead flesh.
Yeah. Ribs. It is said that lonely travelers can escape a ghoul's attack by repeating the call to prayer. So there we have religious rites turning them back.
Yeah.
The turn undead. In fact, a ghoul, in contrast to a devil, might actually convert to Islam.
Oh.
When they hear the call to prayer. So that's interesting.
Yeah, that is.
Could use that somehow in a game of rival clerics, trying to turn ghouls into self-hating servants of their god.
Yeah, or maybe that's the ultimate a traveling priest cleric challenge is I'm gonna convert a ghoul I'm gonna save a ghoul's soul,
Oh yeah.
If you can do that,
just how a devil will it's a much more delicious target to corrupt someone who is so righteous.
Yeah. So to save something so corrupt being the motivator. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. But in modern day, the word ghoul entered the English tradition in what is it called? Pickman's Model. Pickman's Model is a short story by H.P. Lovecraft.
Oh
Ghouls
yeah.
are members of a subterranean. Do you know about this?
Yeah. I read it ages ago, but
Oh, you
yeah.
did? Do you
Yeah.
remember anything about it?
Um, I remember not too much, like the basic overview of the plot probably, and like
Yeah.
a lot of descriptions of the cave systems connected to, I think, subway tunnels.
Yeah,
Uh,
something like that. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. There's ghouls. They are members of a subterranean race. They live underground. They eat dead human flesh. And by doing that, they were mutated into bestial humanoids. But they carry on intelligent conversations with the living. And they live underground, just like you said, in a bunch of tunnels that connect to ancient human ruins and deep underworlds. And they emerge in subway tunnels to feed on train wreck victims.
Oh yeah, right.
That's a great image.
Yeah.
Lovecraft's vision of the ghoul, and this was something that Robert E. Howard and Clark Ashton Smith, because they were all pen pals and were writing in each other's universes, they all kind of contributed to this. But ghouls described by Lovecraft are dog-faced, hideous creatures, but they're not necessarily malicious. They're just kind of like, they're like bottom feeders.
Yeah.
They're the catfish of people.
Yeah.
They're probably their only food source is human flesh, but they don't seek it out or they don't hunt living people. So like the characters and
it's like the ecological niche they just like settled in through necessity.
yeah. And there's another story by H.P. Lovecraft called The Dream Quest of Unknown Kadath, in which the main character gets involved with like a bunch of ghouls as allies who like help him out. And in fact features the Pickman from Pickman's Model after his complete transition into a mature ghoul. So spoiler alert for Pickman's Model. And then of course, the Fallout series, as you mentioned, ghouls are human beings who've been exposed to large amounts of radiation and they turn into like gross kind of zombie people, but like half of them remain fully in control of themselves and half of them turn feral and are just like mindless eaters of. They attack you a ton, so it's like they're not just eating dead flesh, they're eating whatever. I will now talk about Throne of Bones. This is the book I was talking about that I happened to read last year.
Yeah.
So this is a collection of 9 stories by the late author Brian McNaughton. It was released in 1997. And in it, you'll kind of find a big grab bag of everything that we've talked about thrown in here, but woven into a like pretty heady collection of stories. There's a major theme is how the attraction to debauchery leads to ghoulification. So it's a bunch of characters, and some of them are like very openly depraved, or some of them are like kind of aristocrats who like slowly get curious about ghouls. So it all takes place in this city. It's the capital city of a decaying empire. So like everything is just getting worse all the time. The infrastructure is getting worse. It's surrounded by a gigantic graveyard full of crypts and tunnels. And ghouls are rare, but they are reality of life. So there's ghouls like they're a known thing that not only are in the graveyards, but they're like in the city. They're kind of just like mega pests that if you're rich enough, you live in parts of the city where you don't have to worry about them. But like in certain areas, there's like the risk of a ghoul. And like some people don't really think they exist, but then there's definitely like people have seen them and dealt with them, and they're definitely real. And they're barely kept at bay in the dark corners. But then, like I said, some people get a little too attracted to them. And they become them by indulging themselves by like eating dead flesh, or there's like some like sexual perversion that happens. But when they transform, it's like utterly total. It's not like a tragic transformation like sometimes vampirism is, or like werewolfism. They become a totally different entity or person. Like some of them even like they change their names. They might have memories of their past lives, but it's like they remember. It's like it happened to a different person.
Right. Yeah.
And there's no time wasted about like trying to like make them remember who they were, or like be saved. It's like it's not even a consideration. It's not even a possibility. Right. And they are like, they're sort of the ghouls as described in the game, but like even more. There's a great line. Oh, they have ghouls are the nightmares of every sane person. They are bestial creatures with coffin cracking strength. There's nothing remotely romantic about them. For them, all flesh is sustenance. They wallow in the gore and filth of burial pits, and around them clings the stink of corruption.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And interesting thing that like another weird angle about the whole thing is that they have, after they eat someone, they like against their will, like this just happens automatically.
Chris, you still there?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. I lost you for a second there though.
And 1 second. 1 second. Hello?
Hello.
Hi. Oh my God. Like my microphone cord is extremely sensitive.
Oh.
So I'm just gonna play the last thing I said on luckily my local recording will tell me exactly where everything fucked up.
Great.
And it's on a roll. I love this. I forgot about this book. It's a great book. Just a thing that the weird angle about the whole thing is that their will, like this just happens automatically. Oh, so I will now begin recording again. Hello. Okay. So podcast is still recording. Very good. So this just happens automatically. When they eat someone, they take on that person's likeness, memories, and personality for a time.
Oh.
But it's not like they transform and pretend to be someone to get access to something or to, penetrate a vulnerable area. They like don't know that they are a ghoul actually for a little while, which I don't know what to make of that.
Yeah. Huh. That's weird. I like it. It's weird.
Yeah, and it's funny. It's like a thing that they do. They know what happens to them, and there's a few parts where they like purposely seek a particular person to eat in order to like live like them briefly. It's a strange thing.
It is weird. Yeah.
And then there's another element to it is that there's a criminal underground who deals with them to like coordinate the robbing of graves. There's rich perverts who like want to know more about them and like seek them out. And then tying it all together is the first story is about one of these like he's not an aristocrat, but he's like a merchant's son or something. So he's like kind of an upper crust kid, but he like hangs out in these graveyards and becomes a ghoul eventually, and he becomes the king ghoul. Vomicron Noxus. And a big part of the drama is a rivalry between Vomicron Noxus and another ghoul named Polyard, and that is the main thrust of it. It's pretty it's good, but it's like it's pretty dense for like the topic, but it's like it really explores everything about the ghoul psychologically. Depravity, guilt, appetites, fall of an empire, falling from grace. I recommend it. It took me a while to read. It's pretty thick if I remember, but it was a quick one.
City of Bones, was it? Throne of Bones?
The Throne of Bones, which is not a great title, I don't think. Rhymes too much. Makes me want to say Bone Throne. And I have a couple examples of like ghouls in greater media that aren't explicitly named ghouls or like that. I can only really think of Blade 2. Blade 2 is the best example I can think of. The concept of Blade 2 is that there's a hyper vampire. There's a race of vampires who are even more vampires than the vampires. And the vampires need Blade's help to kill them. And these little guys are extremely pale, creepy, gaunt. They're wicked little freaks. They live in big packs underground. And when they eat and feed, their face extends monstrously, and they're not interested in the masquerade of being vampires, of like controlling the world or reaching some sort of equilibrium with humans. They're just there to eat. They're just there to like chase and pounce. And they have there's a more strong-willed leader, the Ghast of the whole thing, who he has the same appetites, but he's more philosophical. He's more philosophically motivated. He feels he is if I remember correctly, he's like the more powerful evolution, the more primal, and therefore more fit.
Yeah.
I think that's a cool take. I like the idea of a Ghast
Christopher Lawson and Wes Grist.
That the state that they're in is actually
Lawson.
more
Find me on
worthy
Twitter
of
at Chris M. Lawson.
Yeah.
Music
is
by
a truer
Wes,
form
aka
than
Elias.
a
You can find more of his music on
afraid to be eaten.
bandcamp.com/Elias.
Oh, you got little lives and you wear a little hat and you go to your little work.
It's not
and
a hacker thing,
your little
it's just what was
salad.
available. Thanks to Sarah B. Milner for
like
our
a gas
logo.
that's like, no,
Thanks
like
to
what I
everyone
do
listening
is like
and to
truth,
everyone
truth,
talking
and that's just,
monsters
you know,
on the Monster Manual
Yeah,
MASH Facebook
Yeah,
group.
I like the idea of
Monsters
like the
TV.
ghouls are like they only feel the hunger, but the ghast is like we are hunger, and that's okay. The fact that we feel awful, this is like we are like they just embrace the feeling.
Yeah, it's it's imagining Sisyphus happy, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly. And then also, as mentioned, the Masquerade, Vampire the Masquerade. There are ghouls in that. They are the human slaves of vampires. And it's your classic Renfield situation where they like drink the vampire's blood and become beholden to them, and they're like allowed to indulge their like lesser appetites and their like lesser lives, so
Yeah.
they can. Renfield famously eating the eater of bugs. That was all he was allowed, but he had that like kind of he was unsophisticated and like not in control and like really beholden to his hunger in a way that Dracula ain't, you know?
Yeah.
Which is a good it's a good way of putting it in folding it into the vampire mythos is like ghouls are vampires who like don't know how to hold their liquor.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm sure there's more out there, but that's it. I mean, I think ghouls, do you know any?
Well, those are like I think you got some of the main ones, but like the other examples I'm thinking of are missing some crucial aspects of it. Like
Yeah.
I definitely think of like The Last Man on Earth, I Am Legend, like that whole situation.
Oh
There's some
yeah.
parallels
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
And I think in the Simpsons parody of that, they explicitly call them ghouls.
I've never seen that one.
Yeah, I think it was a treehouse of horror, and come on, it's the schools, let us in, like that.
Oh
thing,
yeah.
something like that. But the other things that are coming to mind are like, no, that's a fast zombie, and that's a different thing.
Yeah. There's a lot of overlap. You have to understand the context. There's a lot you have to know to make the call.
Like
But there's
28 days
definitely
later, maybe there's something ghoul related there, but that was like a
Yeah.
rage virus that was like just violence, not like consumption, which is like also related in the whole
Yeah.
thematic ghoul thing. But yeah,
being overwhelmed by any one like primal lust
yeah,
to the exclusion of all others and like not being sad, like not deriving pleasure from it, you know? Which is funny because I just said how like we in everyday usage, in normal usage, we would call someone who like seems to be delighting in misery as being ghoulish. But like I think it's cool to, and like it's different to have a monster who like doesn't enjoy what they're doing.
yeah.
I think that's it. You know, I was gonna say, it's Halloween time, and I've seen a lot of Halloween decorations, and I think there's like a great number of like undefined, creepy little guy statues and decorations that are like, is it a skeleton? Is it supposed to be like death in his black robe or cloak? Is it supposed to be a vampire? It's kind of like nondescript, like no name brand, like human looking monster.
Yeah.
I think they all kind of fall under some, you'd like call it, it'd be okay to call it a ghoul.
It'd be okay to call it a ghoul. And I've always felt like, I don't know what type of undead guy the Crypt Keeper is, but the Crypt Keeper always seemed to me like some type of ghoul.
Yeah.
But like not in anything other than like his appearance, but like just like what type of monster is that?
Well,
It's like,
he delights, he seems to delight in terror.
Yeah.
In tales of terror, certainly. And I could imagine him being like a person who is like too interested in episodic stories.
I'm thinking of the animated
terror.
show too, and like he really loves visual gags. Like
He loves visual gags.
Yeah.
That's his big taboo, is that he indulged his
one too many visual puns, and you just start mutating. Yeah. Also, this is really like neither here nor there, but it's ghoul, other than being ghoul related. But I always think of that bit from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, where they're asking Charlie what his hobbies are, and he's like, "Oh yeah, ghoul," or his interests. He's like, "Ghouls are my interests." He's like, "What do you mean?" He's like, like little green ghouls, like little," and it's like little green ghouls. Like you see them all around at Halloween, like little green ghouls.
Yeah, they're not a. It's funny because I was like, everyone knows what we're talking about, but they're like, what is that? No one really knows what they are.
Yeah.
But it's so persistent. It's like the least like defined but very typical monster.
Yeah.
But we don't have like a solid basis of like what they are. There's no rules. There's no ghouls rules.
Yeah. And it's like, it also reminds me of like, I feel like ghouls are, this is a very common type of like internet jump scare video. There's like the pale guy crawling around weird, sprints
Yeah,
at
the
you.
pale
That's
guy.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, the pale weirdo with the jaw that it opens too much.
Yeah. So hopefully this episode will give you some guidance about what to do when that happens. And when
Yeah.
you see them, you'll see them everywhere now.
Yeah, all over the place.
Um,
And if they come sprinting at you, I don't know. I hope you're armed.
Yeah. All right. Well, take us away, man.
All
Next
right,
up is
monsters.
giants. Sorry,
Next up is
I told you to do
okay.
it, and then I interrupted you.
What's the next monster, Chris?
Giants.
Giants.
It's giants. Yeah.
Giants. A classic.
Yeah.
All right, monsters, out of here.
Nice.
Thank you.